Think about the last time you met someone new. Within seconds before they had said more than a few words, some part of you had already made a decision. Trust them. Don't trust them. Not sure yet? Keep watching. You didn't choose to make that decision. It just happened. You call this a gut feeling. But the real answer is far stranger. That instant judgment wasn't intuition in the way you think of it. It was a survival calculation. Running a program that is far older than language, older than agriculture, older than almost anything you'd call civilization. For most of human history, choosing wrong about who to trust didn't cost you an awkward friendship or a bad business deal. It cost you your food, your safety, sometimes your life. So your brain built a system to make that decision fast, and it built that system a very long time ago. Picture an early human band, maybe 20 to 50 people, moving together across open land, no police, no courts, no written laws, no way to look someone up before deciding whether to share your shelter with them, split your meat with them, or turn your back on them while you slept. In that world, the people around you weren't just company. They were your entire safety net. If you got hurt, they carried you. If a predator came at night, they were the extra eyes that spotted it first. If food ran short, they decided whether you ate. Which means the question of who to trust wasn't a personality preference. It was the single most important calculation a human being could make over and over every single day. So how did your ancestors solve it? Not with paperwork, not with background checks. With something much faster and much older, reading people. Evolutionary psychologist Robert Trivers, whose work in the 1970s helped lay the foundation for understanding cooperation in humans and animals, described this as reciprocal altruism. The idea is simple once you hear it. Helping someone today only makes evolutionary sense if there's a real chance they'll help you back later. And that means your ancestors needed a reliable way to sort people into two categories fast: the ones who pay you back and the ones who don't. Here's a question worth sitting with. If you can't read minds, how do you know which category someone belongs to before you've actually tested them? You watch for signals. Small ones, consistent ones. Anthropologist Sarah Blaffer-Hrdy has spent decades studying cooperative behavior in early human groups, and her research points to something surprising. Early humans weren't just relying on strength or resources to judge who was valuable. They were reading emotional reliability. Who showed up when a child was in danger, who shared food without being asked twice, who kept their word even when nobody was watching them closely. These weren't abstract virtues, they were data points. Every one of them predicted something concrete. Will this person still be useful to me in 6 months? Or will they vanish the moment things get hard? This is where something in your own body starts to make a lot more sense. Have you ever noticed how much weight you put on tiny, almost meaningless details when you first meet someone? A firm handshake. Whether they make eye contact. Whether they laugh at the right moment or seem to be performing a laugh. None of these things logically prove anything about a person's character. And yet your brain treats them as if they do. That's because for most of human history, these microsignals were often the only information available. There was no resume, no references, no 5 years of shared history to draw on. Just a few seconds of behavior, and a brain trained by hundreds of thousands of years of consequences to extract every possible clue from it. Psychologist Alexander Todorov, who studies how people form snap judgments about faces, found something that might surprise you. People form trust judgments about a stranger's face in under 1/10 of a second. Not after a conversation. Not after watching how someone treats a waiter. In the time it takes to blink, your brain has already started building a case. Is that judgment accurate? Not always. Often not even close. But that's not really the point. The point is that it was fast. And for most of human history, Fast decisions kept people alive more often than slow, careful ones. A hesitant response to a stranger with a weapon didn't get a second chance to be corrected. So your instinct isn't a lie detector. It's a threat detector wearing a lie detector's clothing. Here's the twist that changes how you think about all of this. Trust, in the ancient world, wasn't really about whether someone was a good person in some abstract moral sense. It was about whether they were predictable. Predictability was survival. If you knew exactly how someone would behave under pressure, you could plan around them. You could build a life next to them. Unpredictability, on the other hand, was terrifying because an unpredictable person could turn on you at the exact moment you needed them most. This is why, even today, inconsistency bothers you so much more than you'd expect. Someone who is kind sometimes and cruel other times will often unsettle you more than someone who is simply consistently difficult. Your ancient trust system isn't asking, is this person nice? It's asking, can I model this person's behavior well enough to bet my life on it? There's another layer here that most people never think about: reputation. In small ancient bands, everyone knew everyone. There was no anonymity. If you cheated someone, stole from them, or failed to help when you were needed, that information didn't stay contained. It spread fast. And once your reputation as someone unreliable took hold, it followed you everywhere the group went. Researcher Robin Dunbar, known for his work on the cognitive limits of human social groups, has argued that gossip itself likely evolved as a tool for exactly this purpose: tracking who could be trusted across a group too large for everyone to personally verify every interaction. Gossip in this framework isn't a character flaw. It's an ancient reputation tracking system, running on human voices instead of databases. This is worth pausing on for a second, because it reframes something you might feel a little guilty about. That instinct to want to know what other people think of someone before you trust them? That's not shallow. That's your brain running the exact same reputation check your ancestors ran, just with modern tools instead of a campfire. Now here's where it gets even more interesting, because trust wasn't only about individuals. It was about groups. Early humans developed a powerful, fast-acting system for sorting people into one of us and not one of us. This in-group, out-group instinct helped bands quickly assess strangers, because an unfamiliar person from an unfamiliar group carried more risk, different customs, different alliances, unknown intentions. In a world with no way to verify a stranger's history, treating outsiders with more caution wasn't cruelty. It was, in a cold, evolutionary sense, a reasonable default. This is where a lot of your modern social instincts, the automatic ease you might feel around people who share your background, your accent, your interests, and the automatic caution you might feel around people who don't actually come from, not from any belief you consciously hold, from an ancient shortcut for managing risk in a world with almost no other tools to do it. Understanding this doesn't excuse modern bias. If anything, it should make you more suspicious of that instinct, not less, because the shortcut that once kept a small band safe from an unpredictable rival group is now applying itself, often inaccurately, to a coworker, a neighbor, or a stranger on the street who poses no threat at all. So here's a question worth answering honestly. In the comments below this video, has there ever been a moment when your gut instinct about someone was completely wrong and you only realized it later? Not a moment where you were right. A moment where the ancient system misfired. Naming that moment is actually useful because it's one of the clearest ways to see this ancient trust machinery in action, working on you in real time in the 21st century. There's one more piece of this puzzle that ties everything together, and it might be the strangest part of all. Trust wasn't just something you extended to others. It was something you had to actively earn constantly in front of witnesses. Researcher Michael Tomasello, who has spent much of his career studying cooperation in humans compared to other primates, found that humans are unusually good at something almost no other species does well: coordinating shared goals with people who aren't blood relatives. Chimpanzees, for comparison, show far less willingness to cooperate with unrelated group members toward a shared outcome. That difference matters more than it seems. It means trust between non-relatives had to be built through demonstrated, repeated, visible reliability. Every act of sharing, every kept promise, every time you showed up when it counted, was a deposit into a kind of social account. And every broken promise, every act of selfishness at the wrong moment was a withdrawal that could take a long time to rebuild. You still feel this. When someone breaks your trust once, it rarely erases everything that came before instantly. But it does something specific. It resets the clock. It puts you back into observation mode, back into that ancient, careful state of reading small signals again, because your trust system just got new information suggesting its prediction might have been wrong. This is also why trust, once broken, is so much harder to rebuild than it was to build the first time. The first time, you were extending trust based on limited information and reasonable assumptions. After a betrayal, you're not starting from zero. You're starting from a deficit because your ancient system now weighs the possibility of harm more heavily than it did before. That's not you being unfair. That's the exact same danger-first logic that kept your ancestors alive, redirected at a person instead of a predator. So the next time you meet someone and feel that instant, wordless read on them, or the next time someone earns your trust slowly, one small, consistent act at a time, or loses it all at once with a single betrayal, you're not being irrational and you're not overthinking it. You are running a system built across hundreds of thousands of years, refined in small bands, where trusting the wrong person could end your life and trusting the right one could save it. It doesn't care about resumes or first impressions in the modern sense. It cares about one thing. Can this person be predicted, relied on, counted on when it matters? The stakes have changed. Betrayal today rarely means death. But the wiring hasn't caught up, and it's still scanning every handshake, every kept promise, every small inconsistency for the same information it's always been looking for. Think about the last time you met someone new. Within seconds, before they had said more than a few words, some part of you had already made a decision. Now you know exactly what that decision was really about.